Hello my fellow readers. In this video I'm going to be going over my quarterly review. This is my third quarterly review. I was hoping to have this video out in October, but I had a lot of other reviews I did instead. And who cares, it was going to be stuff that was over anyway. So this covers the period of July through September and all of the books I read. So during this period of July through September, I read 194 books, which is a ton. I do think there was a lot of manga in there and maybe other graphic novels. But yes, a lot of fiction as well. Yeah, this year's been going really well for reading for me, so I don't know if it'll be at this same pace in the future, but this year I've been able to get a lot more in. And checking my totals, I have read a grand total of 532 books so far this year, but that would be January through September. So by now, at the time I'm filming this, I've actually read more than that. But yeah, this has been a crazy, crazy year for reading, but it's been pretty good. Reading is a good relaxer for me. A lot of times I get like very anxious, so if I can lose myself in the story, it helps me to like stay calm and focused. And that just helps with other things. So that's why and maybe how I get through so many books. Also, again, I'm a big audiobook listener, so usually I'll be listening to an audiobook and I can do like crafts and other small tasks with it. And with my audiobooks, I usually have it at least at 2 times the speed, because I think audiobooks are read very slowly and I can't listen at the regular rate. My attention will drift. But once I got it at that speed, it keeps my mind engaged so that I can stay with the story better. So part of it, I think, is that I can get through a lot of audiobooks. But two, I'm usually also like reading a book that's non-audio, as well as reading a lot of graphic novels and manga. So that's how I can get the numbers up. Like, it sounds crazy, and a little bit of it is, but I can, it's working for me right now. Again, in the future, like I've had some years where I don't read that much. This year I've been able to consume a lot. I don't know why or how, but I have. So for now, I'll just go over, show you, I guess, what I've read on my Goodreads, and then I'll come back and tell you about my favorites. So here is a quick scroll through of all of my books read from July through September, and it starts here with Magus of the Library and will go up. So these 4 books were from the previous time period. So here's just a quick look at those books. And I feel like I got through a lot of manga during this time. Especially right here, like there's so much manga that you're probably seeing that, yeah, I was catching up on a lot of series. I was reading whole series, but there were a lot of standout books here. And many that I've done reviews on. And perhaps some that I will be doing a review on. So keep your eye out for some of those. It was a pretty good time for books. And so that time period wraps up right here with my final book for September being The Final Girls Support Group by Grady Hendrix, which was a good read. I enjoyed that quite a bit. I like a lot of Grady Hendrix's works. And that was how I wrapped that up and started to move into October. Yeah. Fun times in the reading world. So there was actually quite a few books or series that I really enjoyed during this period. This is the time period where I got to read the first volumes in Magus of the Library, which I did a review on, and I really loved that series. I also read the whole series of O Maidens in Your Savage Season, which was a brilliant and fun, great series, and also got to read the first volumes that are currently released in Blue Period, which is now an anime that's on Netflix. And I think those series alone made my reading like so great over that period of months. Those series were so phenomenal, and I would recommend every single one of them to anybody. They're just so great and so well written. Some of my favorite YA books, I guess you would say. Although the first one is semi like YA new adult and definitely has great adult appeal. But the first one be Yoke, a story of two sisters who've been kind of like semi-estranged, but then a kind of medical event occurs and brings the two sisters back together, and it's just that whole sister story development, and I really just enjoyed that book greatly. I would highly recommend that to anybody. Instructions for Dancing, which had an ending that kind of, it's not really even just the ending. The book in general, it brings up a lot of questions about love and relationships and the value and worth of that, and including like, is it worth it to put your heart out there when so much ends in a variety of ways, like so many relationships, love relationships, pair bonding ends. like the majority of the time, those relationships will end, and is it worth it to pursue that? So Instructions for Dancing, I loved that it asked those questions, and it's brilliantly written. Nicola Yoon, it's great. More fun, like book that's a lighter read was Tokyo Ever After. It's just a sweet YA rom-com similar to The Princess Diaries, but set in Tokyo, so awesome. Then another fun one, non-YA, and is more, I think, in the crime mystery genre, was Dial A for Aunties, or Aunties, and so cute. Love the relationships in it. Loved all the characters. There's going to be a second book in that series, and I will definitely be reading it because it was so fun. So fun. And kind of staying in that contemporary vibe was Julie Murphy's If the Shoe Fits, which was a Cinderella retelling, but also brings in kind of the relationship reality television, think like The Bachelor, but good character development and different characters, and that was a super fun read. And I actually did, I had an arc of that book, so I got to read it early, and I loved it, and it was fabulous, and I would highly recommend that to anybody. More kind of fantasy-wise, I got to read Into the Dying Light, which was the final book in the series, and now I'm like spacing on what the series is called, but that's a really good series, and I would recommend that one. And then T.J. Klune's Under the Whispering Door, which I think is quite different from some of his other works, but I loved its questions about death and life and what living is. Really good exploration. Loved that book. Another favorite author of mine that I got to read the most recent book was Lisa Jewell, and it's The Night She Disappeared. I love Lisa Jewell's works, and there is a variety. Like, a lot of Lisa Jewell's latest books are more thriller-based, but there's also been works that she's written that are more just like contemporary or relationship fiction. But I think she's a good writer, and I highly enjoyed like all of her books, but especially I did like this one, The Night She Disappeared. Oh, also got to finish the Devabad trilogy. So the big Empire of Gold was, I believe, the final volume. And I'm so glad that I finished that trilogy. It was so good. I liked how everything was concluded. So I would highly recommend that series if you're looking for a fantasy series, especially a fantasy series that's not the traditional Western fantasy. Oh, another graphic novel I forgot to throw in there, but Pink, which I did a review on. That book in some ways like crushed my heart a little bit. I was a little bit sad, but that was a good story. Like that, it was just a solid story, and I really enjoyed it. And I would highly recommend that to manga readers, especially looking for more of an adult story to be engaged in. Two more. One is science fiction, because I did try to read more science fiction during this time period. I feel sometimes that I overlook science fiction because I am more of a fantasy reader. Fantasy and like thrillers I read more of. But I listened to the audio for Winter's Orbit, which I did not do a review on, but there was something about, and it was almost a sci-fantasy book, but that when there was something about the characters that I just loved their interaction. I loved like the slow burn development of the relationship. And it just happened to be set in space, but it's also very much like kind of typical fantasy fare. Like even though it's set in space, so technically it's sci-fi, it has a lot of like those fantasy elements, but it's also romance, more slow burn romance. It was good. I liked it. And finally, I can't believe I didn't include this in the other manga that I loved, but another series I did a review on, The Golden Sheep. Loved the high drama of that, the relationships in that one. It was just such a brilliant series. So I've read a lot of great things this year. So far, I still have, at the point of recording, I still have another month and a half to go of books. We'll definitely hit the 600 mark for books this year, which is crazy, but exciting. And I have realized recently, I mean, I can always find a book, but I have realized recently that it's getting harder to keep that pace, like even just finding ones that I'm really that into. I mean, other than like forcing myself to kind of drudge through books just to get through books. Yeah, it's getting a little bit harder to find the ones I'm really passionate about. But it's been pretty good. Trying to think if there's any other concluding thoughts. I don't have any. Come January, probably January, I will have my review of October through December, and maybe just give some final thoughts about the year. But yeah, I can't believe it. I cannot believe that 2021 is almost over, that I've been doing reviews on this channel for over a year now. And it's exciting. I'm glad things that I kind of did more of. I've added more of my manga reviews because I do see other manga review channels, but a lot of them focus more heavily on the big shonen stories that like everybody talks about, and they don't talk about more of the shoujo series, BL series. Like you don't see too many like focusing on those, or GL. You definitely don't see a lot of GL series. So I try with my channel to bring a mix of all of the genres of manga, because they're good. People should know of these stories, and not just the big names that everybody hears about, which, you know, I also read those too. So I have Jujutsu Kaisen, I have Demon Slayer, Chainsaw Man, Beastars, you know, I love those too, but there are some lesser known series that I think deserve some focus and reasons and reviews for reading. So I will definitely continue to bring those up. And yeah, so far so great with the year. That's it for this quarterly review, and that's it for this video. Until next time, bye.